Okay, great. Okay, let's start with let's actually just start right. Let's just jump right in with our first slide. Kelly Corey mentioned Brene Brown and her work, specifically Brene Brown. Her current book is called Dare to Lead. And Brene Brown, Dr. Brene Brown, is this powerhouse researcher, and she's famous for her TED Talk on the power of vulnerability. Her insight is largely valuable to this entire conversation that we're having about courageous leadership. And what I want to talk about today is how clear communication is actually one of the most profound acts of kindness that we can give to not only others, but also to ourselves. And, I want to emphasize, I live my life as the experiment. So, if I'm working on this topic, I'm also trying to see where all of these lessons apply in the classroom, in my community, but also at home. So here's my story. My husband, Ryan, and I, we like to host events. So we were planning to host an event Sunday, so very recent. And I wrote just on a note, I scribbled, "You pick up the groceries for the Sunday dinner." And I just, tacked it on the wall. And a little, I mean, there's somewhat of a passive aggressive sense there that I'm hoping that you're recognizing, and just, let me know if you can relate to this. I'm sharing this because, I'm learning and growing, and hopefully if my stories can help shed some light on how clear communication is challenging, then hopefully that's a win. Okay, so I scribbled a note, and I never actually checked in with Ryan to say, "Did you get my note?" And we didn't really communicate about it. So we both went to church. Then after church, we split our different ways. And lo and behold, we both go to two different grocery stores, and we buy almost the exact same grocery list. And then we show back up at home, and we had double of everything. So part of the story, I just want to say, clear communication can save time, it can save money, and some good-natured frustration. So it's interesting that Dr. Brene Brown brings in this concept that clear communication is one of the most profound acts of kindness. It's actually the cornerstone of many 12-step, or the 12-step program, Alcoholics Anonymous, where clear and honest communication is the key to fostering accountability, setting boundaries, and healing. So Brene did popularize this phrase, but the belief of clear communication as an act of kindness echoes through various fields, from leadership to recovery. Let's dig in a little bit more. In your worksheets, if you're able to pull those up, or we can just look at it here. I want to just take a moment. We've had many sessions today that are helping us to do some self-reflection and self-awareness. And in this time, if you could think about a time that communication broke down. So think about a project or a work relationship or a personal experience. And if you have just a sheet of paper, just jot that down. Like, what was an experience for you where the communication didn't quite go as planned? And now think about, reflect on that impact. What difficult conversations were avoided? Were there some truths that didn't get fully spoken? And then how did that affect the outcome? Were there some unclear or unspoken expectations, such as what was going on with my grocery store? And then consider what you learned. How would clarity and courage have changed the situation? And this last piece is about mining your lessons. What were the challenges you faced and key takeaways? So the core purpose of what I wanted to bring today in this session is to bring practical strategies to help us have clear and courageous communication. So we're going to take your lessons, and then also I'm going to share another example of mine. And then we're going, after I share this next story, we'll lay out some practical and applicable ways that we can actually bring clear and courageous communication into not only our workplace, but at work, not workplace, but school and home and all areas of our lives. All right, let's start with first, let me tell this story of one example that I have. In my past life, I was a change management lead, and I was leading a project team within electric system operations. It was a high pressure project, and what was difficult, we were consistently missing milestones, and I noticed there was tension that was rising. And everything seemed fine. We were meeting on a regular basis. We used agile methodology, so our sprints were looking good. We were accomplishing the tasks that we thought that we needed to accomplish. So everything seemed okay on the surface, but the real issue was we were avoiding hard conversations about the growing scope of the project. Now, do you all know, or have you had experience with scope creep? Scope creep is one of my biggest challenges. And as a lot of you are getting to know me, I love to say yes. And I love to do, if we have a vision, then let's carry it out. And so one important thing with clear and courageous communication is knowing how to say no so our yeses are very clean. So here I am, I'm continually saying yes to new tasks, new ideas, and I'm not really acknowledging the impact that this increasing amount of work is actually having on the team. And the scope creep ended up becoming overwhelming. And there was an issue that no one really wanted to bring it up out of fear of creating conflict. No one wanted to be the dream crusher. Everyone wanted to please all of our customers. I mean, we really had great intentions. So we just continue on with this idea that we can do anything, right? Why not? Well, things started to fall apart. And I started noticing like people were on edge, and there was a lot of anger and frustration. And I finally took a deep breath. And when I brought the team together, I laid it out, and I said, I acknowledge that the project we have, it seems like it's bloated. We have extra work, extra tasks, and I really had to own up to my responsibility and my mistakes in continually agreeing to take on more tasks without really checking in with the team. And so I invited everyone to share their frustrations and how they were managing the increased workload. And it was actually a very tough conversation. And my team told me that my constant acceptance of new work without considering the impact was leading to their burnout. And they felt overwhelmed. And despite their best efforts, they couldn't keep up with the shifting priorities. And they admitted they felt frustrated, and not just because of extra work, but because I wasn't setting boundaries. And then it was affecting their ability to deliver. So hearing that feedback, it was not easy, but it was necessary. And what I learned is really noticing my eagerness to say yes was causing more harm than good. And after hearing their concerns, I thanked them for their honesty, and I asked them, and this is a wonderful way that Brené Brown also lays out in her book, Dare to Lead, to ask your team, how can I support you? And what does support look like? So at that time, we decided that we'd take a break. And I think that's another thing that Brené Brown highlights for us, is taking a break so that we have time to process. And when our team came back together the next day, we had better solutions, and we were able to talk together about how can we set clearer boundaries and manage the workload in a way that didn't overwhelm the team. So this experience, it taught me the importance of being clear and about what's manageable. It also taught me about avoiding scope creep and being transparent about our capacity. We were able to realign and create a realistic plan moving forward. So how I'm working with this now, I continue to work on how to be more clear. And let's start with this very first topic here. Clear is kind. Say what you mean and mean what you say. So having the courage to dedicate ourselves to having effective communication is not just about being clear, but it's also about how are we building trust and fostering relationships. So being clear with our words sets the foundation, and it can really help us grow in all areas of our lives. Now, Brene Brown discusses how many of us avoid clarity. And this one is key for me, really. It's when I think that I want to sugarcoat something or I want to withhold my truth, Brene Brown says that is unkind. She said when we feed people half-truths and sugarcoat uncomfortable topics, it's unkind. When we do this to make ourselves comfortable, but it leaves others confused and misinformed. Failing to be clear with a colleague about expectations because it feels too hard, then blaming them for not delivering, Brene says that's unkind. Here's another one that I'm really working on. Talking about people rather than directly to them, also unkind. So this ties directly into how trust is built. It's not through these grand gestures, but through small, seemingly insignificant interactions. John Gottman's concept of sliding door moments illustrates this beautifully. John Gottman says these sliding door moments are everyday opportunities where we can either connect with someone or turn away. So for instance, in this illustration here on the screen, when a colleague seeks input or a loved one reaches out and would like some support, how you respond in that moment can either deepen the bond or gradually erode trust. Consistently turning toward these moments of connection is what allows trust to flourish over time, creating emotional safety and strengthening relationships. It's interesting to look at John Gottman's research because he shows us that it's the small moments of attention, listening, and caring. And it's not those giant heroic and showy actions that actually build and create trust, but those smaller times when a colleague notices that something's going on or they ask for support and you, even though you're busy, take the time to provide honest feedback. Now, setting boundaries, here's our second one. We've been talking about setting boundaries from the beginning. It's another form of clear communication. And the important thing for me that I've been learning about boundaries is it's really about being clear of what is okay and what is not okay. And ensuring that, and one of the assignments I've done in my leadership work is likes and dislikes. And so I would set a timer on my phone, and every few minutes, I would either write like what I like, what I don't like. And then it was really a revealing, engaging exercise to dig into what matters most. Okay, so Brene Brown also emphasizes that vulnerability, this is important, vulnerability without boundaries isn't true vulnerability. So vulnerability for the sake of being vulnerable and just without the boundaries, she says it's often manipulation or a cry for attention. So clear boundaries offer the freedom for both parties to engage in honest, healthy communication. Let's get to point number 2. So, I didn't say one thing that I think was also very important. Clarity doesn't mean that you have to be blunt or harsh. In fact, being clear is one of the kindest things you can do. When you're direct with your words, it reduces the chances for misunderstanding and people know exactly where you stand. Okay, I wanted to make sure I said that one. All right, now let's talk about courageous communication requires stepping out of your comfort zone. We've been talking about being stepping out of our comfort zone, going into the unknown and braving, sharing your truth, giving feedback, sharing your opinions, and addressing sensitive issues, even at the risk of friction. I like what Brene Brown's leads us when she speaks of leading with vulnerability. So leading with vulnerability, it means admitting when you don't have all the answers, being open to your mistakes and creating a space for others to do the same. When you show vulnerability, you signal that it's safe for others to speak up and share their honest thoughts. As Brene Brown famously states, vulnerability is the birthplace of love, belonging, and joy. It's also where creativity and innovation thrive. Without the willingness to risk failure or embrace the unknown, there can be no new ideas, no fresh perspectives. And Brene also speaks about in organizations that treat vulnerability as a weakness, that's where you can see that innovation struggles and growth stalls. Our third point is about responding with empathy. And what does that look like? Acknowledging and validating emotions. So effective communication, it goes beyond clarity, but it also requires empathy. So as we acknowledge and validate emotions, we foster an honest dialogue, and we create this space where people can be seen and heard, and we can meet their deeper yearnings to matter, to belong, to be part of the greater whole. Empathy isn't just about agreeing with everything, it's an understanding and appreciation where others are coming from. As Lisa Feldman Barrett explains in How Emotions Are Made, The Secret Life of the Brain, emotions aren't simply automatic reactions. Emotions are complex, constructed experiences shaped by our individual histories and perceptions. When we acknowledge and validate someone's emotions, we affirm their experience and make space for genuine connection. This means recognizing feelings behind the words and showing you're listening, not just responding, but actually discovering and understanding. One of the examples that Brene Brown, I love Brene Brown's work. She is really the application master. So she gives all kinds of conversations leads that are so helpful. So one way that she said, I hear that you're feeling overwhelmed by the deadlines. That's a lot to manage, and it's understandable to feel that way. Just validating one's experience is actually at the heart of being vulnerable and seeing others as mutual and developing greater capacity to have empathy. Now, this next point on here is about creating psychological safety. And this term, psychological safety, is coined by Amy Edmondson in the Fearless Organization, Creating Psychological Safety in the Workplace. Psychological safety is the shared belief that team members can take risks, they can express their ideas, admit mistakes, and ask questions without fear of embarrassment or punishment. And it's the foundation for innovation, learning, and collaboration. So when teams actually feel psychologically safe, they're more likely to share their ideas, challenge the status quo, take risks, and which are all critical for growth. And it's not about avoiding conflict. It's about building the environment where open dialogue is encouraged and mistakes are seen as learning opportunities. For instance, if a team member makes an error, instead of reprimanding them, acknowledge their effort and encourage them to share what they've learned from their experience. Now I'm smiling at this because I remember in another past life of mine, um, I was in corporate safety, and when there was a safety incident, what we used to do is bring the person who had a safety incident into a room and stand before the panel, and they would have to justify and rationalize their behavior and then come up with an action plan to correct what had occurred. So what ended up occurring, or what happening, is a lot of safety incidents, as you can probably imagine, were swept under the rug, and a lot of unwillingness. It wasn't safe to report an incident. And so there's a lot of work. I talk a lot. I bring into my org behavior class that I teach here at the University of Olivet, Richard Boyatzis' work on how do we make a shift? How do we truly help people to change? And if people are in that fight, flight, or freeze response, which is really from the sympathetic nervous system, that's when your amygdala is on fire. They talk about that being amygdala hijack, and you're in this high cortisol response, stress response. It's going, like, your Boyatzis would say that your peripheral vision, it goes from 180 degrees to 30 degrees. And the idea is, if you can help people to activate their parasympathetic nervous system, and you can do this through self-soothing, and, well, that would be self-soothing. If you could do it through clear and kind communication, empathy, all the things that we're talking about, there's actually like physical responses and ways that we can help ourselves to, because the idea is we want to move from the limbic system of our brains to then activating our prefrontal cortex, which is the seat of our consciousness, so that we can then be making rational decisions and not necessarily being in that fight, flight, or freeze response. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Our final thoughts. Final thoughts. So as we look at adopting a mindset that clear is kind, Brene Brown suggests that we make a commitment to being honest and direct. Really, truly looking at, and I'm pausing because it's such a self-awareness and it's personal responsibility. I mean, this is where, yeah, I've really been looking at my own responses to, uh, you know, sometimes I'll want to, dissect or analyze situation, right? That's what I do. I'm constantly looking at, what's the psychology, what's the behavior, what's going on, and if I'm talking about a person, this is where I'm coming now, but if I'm talking about a person and I'm not willing to bring it to them directly, then I'm actually out of integrity, because I'm committing to have honest and direct communication. And it doesn't mean that I'm coming across, and I think that's number 3 there, use kindness in my delivery. I'm looking at how I have a belief system of being brutally honest. And I'm really looking at, where did that come into play? And I often say to my students, well, we want to be saying, say what we're thinking and feeling in the moment. Well, also, we want to be looking at toward the higher vision. So there may be something that we're upset about, right? The deadlines are always shifting and there's too much work, or I mean, even today we lost power, so we could be complaining about that and we could be blaming, but instead we can acknowledge, I felt really scared when we lost power today. And I called my buddies at Consumers Energy, and I felt more secure that we weren't alone and on our own. And it felt like we were part of a community, and that mattered. And we were resilient on our own because we had the technology to move on, and we called our friends in our network. And I just think that the skills that we're discussing today on this colloquium is so key to how we're evolving in the time and, how we are and who we are as human beings on this planet. I like that second one, embrace the suck. Now, that's strictly from Brene Brown. Embracing the suck is her way of saying, embrace the discomfort and move toward what feels scary, and reach out when it does feel scary. Then let others know this conversation feels scary. I feel scared on this project. I can go back to my first story with my husband. It was a problem because I felt alone and on my own, and I didn't really let him know what I needed. I needed support. And sometimes you just get going, right? You can imagine me just going, doing my millions of things, saying yes, without realizing that I'm overwhelmed. And all of a sudden I'm on a tree limb on the end, and I look back and it looks like I just cut off my limb. So we're trying to create greater safety and nourishment for ourselves so that we can go out in the world and be courageous leaders. I love this piece about setting clear boundaries, being curious, asking questions. So some in those feedback sessions, even just saying, say more. How does that look to you? And if you go to the worksheet that I posted, there's all kinds of rumbling starters that Brene Brown has provided for us. And her book is fabulous. And she has so many TED Talks and YouTubes. It's a beautiful place to continue sharing. We're actually doing a professional development series here at the University of Olivet. So we really, really, as you guys know, we love this work. Okay, the last one, address issues sooner. Sometimes I think that something will occur and I'll just kind of tuck it away, and I think that I'll get back to it later. Brene Brown is really encouraging us, if something occurs, you have a gut clench. So really being self-aware of what is going on inside your body, that will be the indicator that there's something that you would like to bring up. I don't like something, something feels out of character, something feels off, outside of our values. Those are the moments to just take a break, hold on, find the person that interaction happened with, and kindly say, hey, do you have a minute? I would like to talk to you about what I experienced in our meeting. And from that point on, you could share openly on your heart of, this is what occurred. I felt hurt. I felt alone. I felt like I didn't know where we were going. And I would actually like to have greater security and be on the same page with you, something like that. And because, right, the other piece was a vision of what kind of partnership are we building together and setting the vision. So we've been talking about setting vision today, and it all comes to play together in these skills. Okay, so I think that is the end of my presentation on courageous, or on clear and courageous communication. Something about the John Gottman sliding door moments. I just find that so very helpful, because there's so many, in the busyness of our lives, whenever I'm thinking about getting text messages or, oh darn, my grandmother, I need to reach out to my grandmother and my grandmother-in-law, and just noticing where I want to continue connecting with people and building relationships. And I think those sliding door moments are so important to capture, because it's just those little moments that really help us build greater trust and rapport and better, deeper connected relationships. So as you move forward into the world, remember that clear is actually kind and unclear is unkind. And I hope that you continue to approach your conversations with intentionality, bringing on our prefrontal cortex, embracing the vulnerability of going into the unknown, and fostering psychological safety and healthier relationships. Thank you all. If you have questions, feel free to come off mute. And you can also contact me at any time.
Joy, while we're waiting for folks to pop in with questions, actually, let me look and see if there's something that I can do for them to give them that option. No, I don't see anything in Q&A right now, but as we're waiting, oh, Elizabeth.
Elizabeth.
So can we, let me see if I can unmute her. There we go. You can it says you can unmute. Did you try to unmute?
Oh, now I can. Before. I just wanted to say I really appreciate this whole subject. Communication has always been an interest of mine through my education and especially my master's program. And have you found, though, as far as communication, does that differ when you go male female or other ways of breaking down not just like a whole group, not just everybody, but does it do you get more of a difference in communication clarity when you're looking at different kinds of groups, whether it's male female or however else that you could break that down?
Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm thinking of two things. First, I'll bring up Alison Armstrong. I really love her work, partnering with the opposite sex. She also does Keys to the Kingdom. She's constantly looking at how can males and females value the differences between each other and work better, work as team, better relationships with each other. One of the things that struck me with Alison Armstrong, she would talk about between male and female, that often women would see males as almost more like as a girlfriend. And I'm going to tell my girlfriend, when we're with our girlfriends, we tell our girlfriends everything, right? We tell them all our stories. And it's a lot of drama. We love to tell the story, be in drama. But then what sometimes occurs that is difficult is we get caught in that drama triangle, which is Stephen Cartman's transactional analysis is a whole nother realm. But the idea with the drama triangle is if I'm the victim and I'm blaming or persecuting someone else, I'm not taking personal responsibility. And we say we share that with our guy, friend, husband, partner, and then he takes on the role of, I'm going to be your rescuer and I'm going to tell you how to fix your problem. Well, Joylyn, if you only would have had this clear communication, then or set boundaries or said no, and then all of a sudden I'm feeling resentful. So Alison Armstrong suggests, guys, if you can just hold the trash can for your ladies and just let the ladies pour it all out without trying to rescue or solve their problems. Like truly, and this is Carl Rogers, truly see human beings as whole and complete and perfectly capable of solving all their own problems. How's that, Elizabeth? Thank you. It also made me laugh because I was thinking about a time I went this is before, Kelly, you'll like this one. This is before I started doing my deep women's work to like fully like embrace being a feminine power presence. And what does that really look like? And I was going toe to toe with my manager. And I just thought I could compete the same. I could be direct. And that was where that like brutal honesty, I thought I should, say it like it is. And it actually hurt our relationship. And it was a breach. That's what it's called. And, we can have breaches that happen all the time in our relationships. It's the repairing process that is most important. So how then do we repair and come back? That relationship with that manager took a full year of, like humbling and like honest conversations, like tears, and then really having to stand on my own side and all kinds of it's a process. But I do think that, and I continue to work on this, especially now that I'm director of the Women's Leadership Institute. how then do we communicate and be fully our whole authentic selves and partner with others that are also their full authentic selves? Well, thank you, Elizabeth, for that question. Reminds me of some of my toughest lessons I've learned and continue to learn.
Joylyn, this has been fascinating, just a really great exploration of how to be clear. And you've challenged us with some really great suggestions of how we can build our courageous leadership by being clear, by being succinct. And so thank you for that. That was fantastic. I do want to share with folks that if they want to continue the conversation, we can do that in the Leadership Learning Community discussion forums in the LDR 900 class, which everyone, it's not a class, it's just a room with some discussion forums. And there's one that says clear, kind communication, courageous, something or other. There's a lot of words today. And so would really like to have you all share your thoughts about the session, all the sessions actually. And if you want to reach out and continue the conversation with Joy, she's got access to that as well. And we'll jump back in and continue to look into the leadership learning community area, because we'll be continuing to put some resources from Brene Brown and some other courageous thought leaders. And so that will continue to evolve over time. And if there's some sort of resource that you're looking for, let us know and we can track it down and put it in the resource center for you. Joy, again, thank you so much. And we are so excited to have you as the director of the Women's Leadership Institute director, and excited to see how you and your team of powerful young women bring the organization to life and provide opportunities for all of us to grow here on the University of Olivet campus. Thank you so much. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly Corey. Thank you, everyone.